So no YouTube, no TikTok for that purpose. What about reading a poem? It's more intricate. Reading. Reading is alpha and omega of mastering a foreign language, and so much more than that. Reading benefits both the young and the old. It empowers our brain to intellectually grow. The whole panoply of the universe to unfold. It can take us wherever we are willing to go. Reading enhances analytical thinking and creativity. It's a source of wisdom, knowledge, and pleasure. Reading is a fundamental skill-building activity. It also boosts our memory in large measure. Reading expands horizons, brings out our strengths. It markedly improves concentration and reduces stress. Reading teaches us the necessity of going to any lengths to overcome obstacles and forge our own path to success. The habit of reading or being read day by day helps in all aspects of life at its every stage. Making one smarter, it's an excellent way to maintain our mental edge as we age. Do not succumb to non-thinking activities. Resist the geek high-tech culture's allure for all self-defeating biases and proclivities. Thought-provoking books are the best cure. Electronic gadgets produce a great deal of noise. The loudest babble, indeed, is from a shallow brook. Still waters run deep. Exercise the right choice. Turn off your computer. Pick up a good book. Wander joyously at the turn of each page, deeper into the world called imagination. Stroll down its roads from an early age and immerse yourself in pure sensation. These were 2 out of my 3 odes dedicated to reading. What I assume, irrespective of the artistic value, convincingly demonstrates my unfailing and unswerving allegiances to it. Let's have it open and above board. With all due respect to our classes, homework, films, songs in English our students are exposed to, all this fades into insignificance in comparison with a child taking a book and reading it for pleasure. And reading a good short story in class, intercepted, interlaced with interactive exercises, summaries, discussions, is fabulous, indispensable, and irreplaceable. Alas, the same cannot be said about reading a short poem in class. Poetry is partly a bodily art. If you read it, especially silently, you inevitably lose this crucial physical dimension. Memorizing and reciting poetry is also fundamentally a musical event, with language serving as its instruments. Whenever you recite a poem, you inevitably give it your own unique interpretation. Schubert, Piano Sonata number 21 in B-flat major. Memorizing and reciting poetry, to crown it all, is a great source of inspiration for you to develop your own writing talent, to start writing your own stuff. And if you have started, it's central to being good at it. Or at least, as in my case, better and better, which is also most rewarding and gratifying. Let's take, for example, Roald Dahl's hilarious parody on Charles Perrault's epic fairy tale, Little Miss Red Riding Hood and the Wolf. Many years ago, Dr. Zur had it kindly photocopied and shared with us English coordinators and imposters. I don't remember my then current status. And I've been using it to good effect till today. I'm sure I'm not the only beneficiary who is present today, right? Dahl's poem is inimitable. Funny, burlesque, a simple, not simplistic, a simple, beautiful rhyme scheme, an exceptionally rich vocabulary and language, expressly suitable to teach all age groups, all levels. After introducing the vocabulary of the parody on the board, I asked my students first to identify a famous fairy tale Dahl's poem parodies, and then, without getting into details, to compare and contrast the former and the latter. If you've begun worrying, please don't. I wouldn't do it to you. Of course, I've got an assignment for you as well. During the recitation, I would like you to put your finger on some controversy aroused in the poem, seemingly unwittingly on the part of the author. But as Sigmund Freud, Jacques Lacan, Roland Barthes, Carl Jung, and my daughter claim, there is no such a thing as unintentionally, and far be it from me to dismiss these folks' opinion. One small proviso, it goes with a minor caveat. This problematic issue is not meant to be gun control violation. In Dahl's parody, as many of you know, the small girl is carrying a concealed weapon on her body. It's not that, d'accord? As soon as Wolf began to feel that he would like a decent meal, he went and knocked on Grandma's door. When Grandma opened it, she saw the white sharp teeth, the horrid grin, and Wolfie said, "May I come in?" Poor Grandmama was terrified. "He's going to eat me up," she cried. And she was absolutely right. He ate her up in one big bite. But Grandmama was small and tough, and Wolfie wailed, "That's not enough. I haven't yet begun to feel that I have had a decent meal." He ran around the kitchen yelping, "I've got to have a second helping." Then added with a frightful leer, "I'm therefore going to stay right here till little Miss Red Riding Hood comes home from walking in the wood." He quickly put on Grandma's clothes. Of course, he hadn't eaten those. He dressed himself in coat and hat. He put on shoes, and after that he even brushed and curled his hair and sat himself in Grandma's chair. In came the little girl in red. She stopped, she stared, and then she said, "What great big ears you've got, Grandma." "All the better to hear you with," the wolf replied. "What great big eyes you've got, Grandma," said Miss Red Riding Hood. "All the better to see you with," the wolf replied. He sat there watching her and smiled. He thought, "I'm going to eat this child. Compared with her old grandmama, she's going to taste like a caviar." But then Miss Red Riding Hood said, "But Grandma, what a lovely great big gray fairy coat you have on." "Huh? That's wrong. Have you forgot to tell me what big teeth I've got?" "Oh well, no matter what you say, I'm going to eat you anyway." The small girl smiles. One eyelid flickers. She whips a pistol from her knickers. She aims it at the creature's head, and bang, 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 she shoots him dead. A few weeks later in the wood, I came across Miss Riding Hood. But what a change. No cloak of red, no silly hood upon her head. She said, "Hello, and do please note my lovely fairy wolfskin coat." Roald Dahl, the unsurpassed master of the twist in the tail, macabre, sinister endings. So, what is disturbing? What is disconcerting about Roald Dahl's Little Miss Red Riding Hood and the Wolf? I'll give you a hint, a broad one of that. I used Dahl's parody as a pre-reading activity to introduce a poem from the literature program for 4 points. Once it was also for 5 points. And this poem is not Introduction to Poetry. What poem do I have in the back of my mind? Grandma. Yeah. Semina Shiraz's Tour de Force. grandmother. So, what is out of line? What is out of bounds here? Why did the author entitle his book of fairy tale parodies, in which this poem is surely a gem, a jewel, if not the jewel, the diamond in the crown, revolting rhymes? Revolting of all epithets? Absolutely. As distinct from Charles Perrault's original, as well as Grimm brothers and others' later versions of the fairy tale, in which both the grandmother and granddaughter are smoothly swallowed by the wolf in one big gulp, as it were, and then miraculously saved by a hunter/woodcutter who with his axe and surgical precision slits the creature's belly to let the damsels in distress out. In Roald Dahl's variation, it is stated unequivocally, black and white, in the most unambiguous manner, that the wolf wolves the old woman, devours her. Yeah, he eats her up in one big bite, similar to our species. Wolf eating habits leave much to be desired. In his defense, must be noted that nobody had instructed him to chew 33 times, to masticate 30 times each piece of food before swallowing. We were, and seemingly to no avail. Besides, the creature's digestive system is incommensurably superior to ours. Anyway, the bottom line, the wolf gobbles up the old woman, and what is the reaction of the granddaughter? She seems blissfully oblivious of the fact that her dear granny is no longer around. Instead, she is celebrating the acquisition of a new item in her wardrobe. Where does the speaker come across the lassie at the very end of the poem? In the wood. A legitimate question arises: what on earth she is doing there? Looking for another sucker to skin? She's at the kill, a predator. All right, all right, all right. Aber wir wollen nicht übertreiben. Lass uns nicht zu hart, zu Rotkäppchen sein, Alex. No seamos demasiado duros con Caperucita Roja Isabella. Ne soyons pas trop durs, trop sévères envers le petit chaperon rouge, Nathalie. She must see it as a chance of a lifetime to dress up glamorously. It's a fairy tale, everything is possible. She must picture herself putting on all her finery. A wolfskin fairy coat, a sable fur hat, alligator shoes, snake skin with a little bit more luck, rhinoceros skin bag. Why are you looking at me like that? I'm being sarcastic. I myself an animal rights activist. My neighborhood's outstanding allurophile. You love cats, don't you? Yeah. Of course it's outrageous, scandalous, infuriating. But you agree so with the fact that the granddaughter is so blasé, so imperious. Anyway, was somebody or has somebody been as selfish and insensitive towards your grandparents as Little Miss Red Riding Hood? Come on, bare your heart. Mira, tu Brutus. I had a premonition that I would be the only bad egg in a good company. But, as the Russian saying goes, a wet drop from a song makes it all wrong. To my profound distress and disgrace, I was an unpardonably lousy grandson, I must confess. By the age of 3, slightly paraphrasing Lady Bracknell, the same Lady Bracknell, I had been careless enough to lose all my grandparents but one, my grandmother Bertha, Bert, an exceptionally delicate and gentle woman with a big heart who, as they say on such occasions, was always there when her help was needed most. But in her case, it's telling truth. My mother undergoing one surgery after another, father working like a Trojan, earning an honest penny. There was not much competition for that where I came from. And taking care of my brother. I spent considerable spans of time in my grandmother's one-room apartment. with communal facilities, in comparison with whose abode the humble dwelling place of Mrs. Luella Bates Washington Jones, Langston Hughes Herring, seems palatial, quite a lucrative option. No playmates, no toys, no television or any other gadgets, and still I have quite a few happy memories of those days. Against all the odds, my grandmother somehow managed to brighten up my life, to add charm to it. When I went to school, I loved to visit my grandmother's place on my own. She always made my favorite soup, whose main ingredient, now looking back on it, I realize it poignantly, was pure love, because all other ingredients were not only most staple, but also hardly fresh. There was no refrigerator in her place. And she gave me pocket money from her meager pension. I was genuinely glad when the grandmother visited our place. She always brought ice cream. And I love ice cream. And all along I was taking everything she was doing for me, for her family, for granted. Never taking interest in my grandmother as a personality, as a human being. In her past, in her present, in her worries, aspirations. I must have denied their very existence. I was so preoccupied with my own. It's the custom of the youth to be selfish and not to notice the tribulations that occur all around you to other people, even to your near and dear, and think only of your own. I was about 19 years old when my grandmother Bird died. Quite a mature age to have understood what's what, to have learned to appreciate and show appreciation. I hadn't. I hadn't had a single meaningful conversation with my grandmother before she died. What makes me feel, apart from being mortifyingly egocentric and careless, also moronic to an extraordinary degree? You can judge for yourselves. Berta was born in 1897. She was 17 years old when the First World War broke out. She lived through 2 world wars, the bunch of Russian revolutions, including the victorious socialist revolution, which, as we were indoctrinated in school, ushered a new era in the history of mankind. Remember? Ushered, of all words. It certainly did, and what an era. The pogroms, Berta lived in a small Ukrainian town, one of the epicenters of pogroms. The NEP, the new economic policy, Vladimir Ulyanov Lenin's Red Terror, Joseph Joashvili Stalin's repressions, the horrible famine in the Ukraine in the 1930s, engineered by Stalin, of biblical proportions, when mothers partook of the flesh, a word to the wise. The Second World War, the evacuation, quite a few members of my family fell victims to these adversities, about whom I know next to nothing. Some names pop up in conversations with distant relatives and even on the internet, as in the case with my 2 grand-uncles, who seemingly shared the same bitter fate. Both were young junior officers of the Soviet army, and both perished in the first days of the Nazi invasion. And many, many other historical and family landmarks. My grandmother was a living history, all gone, almost without a trace. The ultimate punishment for my obdurate heart. The answer to the question you're asking yourself is downright yes. It is embarrassing to let the skeleton out of my closet. The wardrobe is overcrowded, it's so stuffy there. One more, one less. It needs airing here and there, now and then. On the other hand, you will hardly disagree that it's rather cool on my part to share it with you in public. and even cooler, zero cool, to share it with my students. What I always do. I strongly believe in breaking the sad news to our kids that their parents and teachers are not perfect before they come to this realization by themselves. Besides, judging by the sly smiles on your faces, you must have figured it out on your own. Yeah, I have an axe to grind. I have an ulterior motive for sharing this unseemly, unsavory fact from my life with my students. 3 ulterior motives, to be more precise. To introduce the first dominant theme of Semene Shoradi's poem, Grandmother, the relationship between grandparents and grandchildren. The second, even more important objective is to draw out my students, candor, father's candor, to be frank with me, but more important with themselves, about their relationship with and attitude toward their grandparents, in the hope they will squeeze a valuable lesson out of my sad narrative. George, don't do what I did. And the sad, marginal, and mercenary aim, I must admit, it is to enjoy reading my students' post-reading assignments. You see, I expect them, as the great English poet William Wordsworth put it, to fill the paper with the breathing of their heart. And I must say that I'm rarely disappointed. I do realize that some of you feel reticent about sharing experiences, stories, happenings from your past with your students. Understandable, comprehensible. However, doing so can be extremely powerful and may lead our students to being willing to reciprocate. What a way of making language both meaningful and memorable. Personal experiences are always huge assets, both in materially fortunate and impoverished classrooms. The second major theme of Semene Shoradi's poem, Grandmother, is la vieillesse, old age. I bring it out through my own triptych, a set of 3 associated poems with very elaborate, even cryptic titles. Old Age 1, Old Age 2, you're a parapsychologist, Old Age 3. Old Age 1 and Old Age 2 serve in their turn to illustrate the first high-order thinking scheme my students encounter, which is none other than distinguishing different perspectives. The very word distinguishing makes their flesh creep, is rather chilling to their fragile bones. The introduction ought to be as thorough and explicit as possible. The speaker of Old Age 1 is a disgruntled, grouchy person who sees old age as little short of calamity, a series of dark days, which would inevitably make the poem sound grotesque, if not ludicrous, but for the morbid fact there are quite a few elderly individuals around of such gloomy, downhearted, morose disposition. Mr. Catanzaro, by the way, is potentially one of them. When a man's career comes to a full stop, having failed to attain the goals set long ago, he tends to regard his entire life as a total flop. Disillusionment is his primary foe and woe. Declining years bring on forgetfulness and an inability to properly converse, hear, see, walk, concentrate, and the oldster gets used to insecurity and immobility. He will sit in his armchair, daydream, and vegetate. Bitterly out of phase with younger generations, elderliness unavoidably brings about future shock. There is a trend towards gossiping, pompous orations, and a tendency to hypercriticism around the clock. Hardly anything going well for them, confused A good many hopes feel listless and drink a lot. For those tired souls, wretched and bruised, hitting the bottle is the only bright spot. Growing old is an unqualified disaster. Nothing seems to be nice about old age, except that our life goes by faster to let us ungracefully leave its stage. Gloom and doom, I know. Don't worry, Old Age 2 is written by me from a different perspective, even though not from a diametrically opposite one, aspiring to be fair and balanced like Fox News. Aging is a cold fact of life. It's a given. From the tender nails, we human beings are impatient to get older. We are driven to learn and experience new things. We stretch ourselves and go full blast. It's only after 40 years that we realize that time tragically goes by way too fast to accomplish much before the music dies. We begin to regularly take stock of our lives by the goals reached and those left undone, until our doddering, senile mind deprives us of thinking lucidly, one by one. Absolutely nothing is good about old age. Some advantages are obvious. Let's be fair. The escape from the 9-to-5 squirrel cage, the discounts, deference, social security, Medicare. There is time to read, nap, travel, study, or mouthing another tired platitude to catch up with an old hobby or hobby. It all depends on our health, savings, and attitude. Freedom is a glorious gift, a divine blessing. Doing what we want, when we want is so great. The bitter irony is, it's also staggeringly depressing. Our physical limitations may prove it to come too late. Growing old is another point in time, a phase, a chapter at the end of a journey that began long ago. The autumn of our life cannot relive the good summer days, but it's welcomed by all, considering the alternative. You know. Old Age 3 is a glimpse into an old person's life. It could be another episode in life of Shirazi's grandmother. The old woman lived in a country with a less benign climate. 6:30 on an icy winter morning. Evelyn's heart is pervaded with dread. Thank you, God, for another day dawning, but it's so hard to get out of bed. Evelyn gently eases her arthritic knees over the edge of the bed in sharp pain. She sits and waits, scarcely dares to breathe. Will my long-suffering feet fail me again? Slowly the ache in her legs subsides. Evelyn braces herself and stands up. Groaning wearily, hands at her sides, she hobbles. Well done, old tub. What an achievement, she adds with a sigh. Not only have lived to see a new day, I have mobilized, never say die, the feeble body of mine in a way. Fortunately, I still have a mind I can use. Some old ones can't. Our aged brain is frail. I certainly wouldn't like to be in their shoes. Losing my senses to boot is beyond the pale. And now the students are ready for the real thing. Semineh Shirazi, grandmother. I hadn't asked her much, just how she felt. And she told me all about her day, and how she'd washed the sheets, and how she could not understand why the towel got so heavy when it was wet. She'd also sound the mattresses, such tired bones, and so much to do. And my eyes filled with tears when I thought of her, how I was simply going to say salam, and so many words would have been trapped inside her. I would have passed by as if what lay between those bedclothes was just old life and not really my grandmother. 20 lines. So potent, each and every one of them. We love you, Semina Shirazi. We love your poem. The third and the final major theme of Semina Shirazi's poem, Grandmother, is family relationships, of which the relationship between grandparents and grandchildren is an integral part. Once again, I bring it in mainly through my own rhymes, dedications to various members of the family, some of which I would like to share with you now. And the first dedication is naturally to Mother. When it's oppressively hot, your caress is fresh like a spring breeze. Your sunny, radiant smile keeps me warm when it's bitterly cold. Your quiet, uplifting wisdom gives me a sense of inner peace. Every step of my life is safeguarded by your heart of gold. You're a heavenly creature brought down to earth for me, who has lovingly taught me many a valuable lesson. I owe you everything what I am and ever hope to be. Thanks, Mom, for being such a wonderful person. I don't know what it means, a life devoid of love. I bask in its tender glow each hour of every day. Its light is brighter than the dazzling sun above. Its depth is fathomless. It cannot drain away. My mama's love is endless. It knows no limit. Her selfless heart adores me no matter what. Her dream is sweet, provided I am in it. Her trust is absolute. Impartiality is not. The second dedication is to Father, of course. The speaker of the poem is a young girl, a teenager, probably. And this poem is an elegy, a mournful lament for a person who has died. What requires on my part prudence and discretion and a preliminary conversation with home teacher, school counsel. My dad was the epitome of what a father should be, compassionate and understanding to the nth degree. A strong, handsome man, good-natured and gentle, downright noble-minded, and a bit sentimental. He could lose with dignity, celebrate it with grace, didn't get what he wanted, but ran a good race. Without being affected by the disease to please, Papa put other people's happiness before his. He instilled in me a passion for giving and sharing. He taught me to be thoughtful, loving, and caring, to show empathy, to feel every person's pain. Thank you, Father, for making me humane. You always told me to keep my head up, to be brave, to never let any mishap turn me into a self-pity slave. You inspired me to take up challenges, provided support, and I can assure you, Dad, it was not all for naught. You comforted me and insisted I look on the bright side. You respected and trusted me. I was your joy and pride, God's gift, an invaluable jewel, the most precious pearl, the loveliest angel, little Miss Sunshine, Daddy's girl. I often find myself thinking of our roaming around, Father, of our sacred dreams and memories we shared with each other, of those many arguments and jovial banter we had over the years, but as I'm doing it, my heart is crying, and I have to brush away tears. Not a day, dear Daddy, passes by that I do not miss you, and my tears dry. Upon my word and honor, No more maudlin, dewy-eyed, lovey-dovey poems for today. Let's move to something humorous. Sisters. No other relationship, in my opinion, falls more smoothly into this category than the relationship between sisters. Sisters, too. I'll spare you the trouble of listening to sisters squabbling, locking horns, banging heads with each other. Jealous rivalry, pure adoration, sullen poverty, a jovial mood, bitter spite, and deep admiration exist side by side in the sisterhood. Oh yes, we know each other inside out, even better than our mother and father, each other's dreams and, no doubt, how to cut to the quick one another. I love my sister dearly. Blood is thicker than water. But I confess, at times, really, I wish I were an only daughter. No? Maybe sister three. Sister three. Diana and I. Maybe this is closer to you. Diana and I. Di and I. Diana and I do not resemble each other. As much as my sister takes after our mother, our father and I look like two peas in a pod. When we say we are sisters, all gasp, how odd. We also have large differences in personality, overall lifestyle, outlook, and mentality. To begin with, I'm very tall and scrawny, whereas my sister is chunky and brawny. The only physical characteristic we share is our so unruly clown-like wiry hair. My mop is red, hers is dark brown. We contemplate it and wear a frown. My eyes are glossy green, and eyes are blue. Where is the justice? I don't have a clue. I've got a bulbous nose, hers is aquiline. The lesser of two evils is no doubt mine. My downward sloping brows show ambition. I always target only number one position. Diana's eyebrows are heavy, close-knit. My sister is reserved and sensitive a bit. My ears are protruding, the eyes are small, and neither set is musical at all. My lips are thin, and hers are thick. Was she entitled, Mom, to cherry pick? My forehead is a source of special pride. It's beautifully arched and high and wide. The forehead of Diana is narrow and low. What does it mean? I think you know. My chin is long. It's clear right away that I invariably stick to what I say. My sister's chin is short and round. She tries to reach a middle ground. My cheeks are hollow and pale. I've never looked for cakes and ale. Diana's cheeks are full and ruddy. She lives it up while I just study. I'm a success in school. My sis is less, but who is more athletic? Take a guess. When ill-bred people give us a stare, Di is self-conscious. I don't care. We have nothing in common. Worlds apart. A harsh winter, a summer, mind and heart. Yet, as different as we are in every possible way, I can't imagine life without her one single day.